I will try to keep this short. I've got a PowerPoint, but the PowerPoint exists mainly of photos. Well, totally of photos, really. I'll put it up front from the start. Mckaela is undiagnosed ASD, high functioning. We did not have her diagnosed in the early years, even though we knew that she was on the spectrum. Mainly, I think, at the time we felt that because she was high functioning, she wouldn't receive support through the Education Queensland model, and so we wondered whether it was worth doing. I've got to say that if we were doing it again, we probably would. I think there is a need to have it recognised, and I think that potentially when she went to high school and even into university, there would have been some advantages if we had have had her diagnosed. But I'll give you a quick rundown on Mckaela. She's always serious. I was listening to what was said before about the interactions with parents. We often thought that Mckaela was looking at us going, my God, what have I got for parents? I think she was also described by her grandfather as an old soul. She was also, her grandfather used to say, boy, you have to love her to like her. And that was at the very beginning. She stayed on the bottle for a long time because she wouldn't move off and she wouldn't try anything new. She was stubborn even at that age. I remember a story about her after we got her weaned off the breast and formula. She went on to milk. So she was having milk, and that was fine until we went down to the grandparents and we heated up their milk, you know, put it in the microwave, heated it up, ready for it, and she wouldn't drink it. At the end of the day, we're going, why the hell she didn't drink it? She didn't like it. It wasn't dairy farmers' milk, was it? And she would only drink dairy farmers' milk. So here I went racing around the Gold Coast, which I've got to tell you didn't have a lot of dairy farmers' milk. So I raced around everywhere to try and find this milk, to shut this kid up, get her to eat something, which wasn't her biggest priority. And I eventually got to one of the, I think it was Coles or Woolworths. And they, in actual fact, had said to me, I said, have you got any dairy farmers' milk? I need dairy farmers' milk. They said, no, we don't, but I can assure you that this Coles home brand, it's actually dairy farmers' milk. Well, I can assure you it's not. Because when we went home, we wouldn't drink that either. So out we went again until we eventually found some dairy farmers' milk, which she did, I think, eventually drink. Times haven't changed much, May, have they? All right. So she was always in things, under things, behind things. This one, I think, is really important. Di made her, and Di's my wife, by the way, she made her this penguin, sewed this penguin up. And I think we talk about autistic kids and the work that you can do with puppets and the like. Well, Pecky Penguin became her puppet. She'd take it everywhere. And while she wouldn't necessarily communicate with people initially, she'd communicate with the penguin. So I suppose one of my learnings in this journey is about early intervention and actually doing whatever it takes to, in actual fact, get them communicating from an early age, which I think is great. She doesn't like to be touched, do you, Mckaela? She loves outdoors, animals, creatures. She'd spend ages up the backyard chasing creatures. She'd spend ages looking for lizards, you know, all the typical stuff. There we go, some more things. She loved parks, loves panning for gold, all those sorts of things outside. She loves artwork, but the artwork's really intricate and really tiny artwork. So right from the beginning when we had here, making things out of people, out of stuff, she'd do that a lot. Right through to some of the end things where she actually won an award to be shown in the Goma as grade 12. And so she went down and did that with all this intricate little artwork made of clay type substance. I had to put those. She never stuck to social norms and conventions, so she was always nude. I reckon she took after her mother, but anyway, always nude. And because we can't have any big parties on 18th and 21st because she doesn't like that sort of thing, I have to do my embarrassment now, okay? Reading time with Dad. If you know well the research sort of suggests that fathers that read to their children have greater and better outcomes. And it's got nothing to do with reading ability, I can assure you, but I think it has something to do with time special time spent with Dad. I would be reading to Mckaela, and we'd do this all the time. And for some reason, one day I sort of stopped halfway through a sentence, probably because someone else was calling me or something. Mckaela finished the sentence. And so I'd keep doing it, she'd keep finishing the sentence. So I'm thinking, oh, she's either got a good memory or she's actually reading. This was from about 3 years of age. So anyway, I never worked out whether she was actually reading or whether she was in actual fact just remembering. But I know when she went to school and her first grade teacher, at the end of the year, I said to her, look, thank you very much for teaching her to read. And her first grade teacher said to me, I didn't teach her to read, she already knew how. And I sort of suspected as much, but you're never sure. And with your first child, you're never quite sure, and she was always a little strange. Poo school. You feel embarrassed now, Mckaela? She just wouldn't poo out of the nappy, would she? Okay, so we offered her this big chocolate frog to do it. She did it once, got the chocolate frog, then went back to pooing in the nappy. So eventually we found poo school, and she went to poo school. She did one lesson at poo school. I think they gave her, what's it called, laxatives. Told us not to put the nappy on and just wait to see what happened. And what happened was that Mckaela held it and held it and held it until she got sick, and eventually couldn't hold it anymore, and then no need for more poo school, was all okay. Once she found out how she could do it, she would do it, which was a little bit of a thing with Mckaela. Once you actually pushed it into anything, and you actually had to, not that we're pushy parents, but you had to push her into doing things, and once she normalised those, she loved them. Her playground and her stage. We would take her to Wiggles concerts. All the other kids are up, yay, dancing around with the Wiggles. Or high five. Mckaela sat there on the seat and just watched. Get up and dance, Mckaela. So she went home to her stage, which was that blue bit between the two, and then she would replicate the entire performance when she got home. She always liked to dress up, be someone else. And when she was dressed up as someone else, she could actually communicate a lot better. It was really interesting. Again, when she learned to swim, didn't want to get in the water, but she was swimming, and by the age of about 6 to 8 months, she was swimming, hated it, didn't want to get in the water, all that sort of thing, then you couldn't get her out of the water. And the stubborn streak. There's no way, Mckaela, you can get up that wall. Yeah, well, Dad, you just watch me. And she decided she'd prove everyone wrong and she'd get up that wall. Sporting prowess. Not much. Not much sporting prowess. And Mckaela would sort of sit out, in the hockey game, and she wouldn't really play hockey. So I said, all right, Mckaela, I'll give you $5 for every goal you score. Guess who then scored some goals and got involved in the hockey game? She used to call our cross-country at Musgrave Hill the unfun run. She learnt prepositions at a very... She learnt prefixes at a very early age. Then until she got into year 4 and realised that there were medals associated with winning age champion, things like that. I remember the day she told me she was going to came home, she told me she was going to be age champion. And besides the fact that I nearly laughed out loud, I would say to her, that's all right, sweetie, you just do your best. That's all I ask for you, just do your best. She'd come home and tell me, I've made this, I've made the 100-metre final, I've made this, I've made that. I said, you just do your best, Mckaela. For the next 3 years, she proceeded to win age champion. But what was the sport far more becoming? Chess. She was a bit of a champion at chess. She led Musgrave Hill to the top of the chess tree in about 2 years. I think we made A grade and stuff like that. She wanted to be a dentist forever. She's decided she doesn't want to be a dentist anymore because she thinks it'd be too alone. She'd be too alone. Hey, not enough people around. That's really interesting, isn't it? So anyway, she's now wanting to be a doctor. She was school captain, she was duck. She actually, to her school captain's speech, took a PowerPoint and proceeded to speak for 8 minutes for her school captain's speech. This was after I'd got to it and cut it down from about 16. She grew confidence with performing, particularly when she was dressed up and pretending to be someone else. She used to, in actual fact, perform for other people, but she'd actually perform from behind the sofa. So she'd go behind there and she'd sing to people. Up until the end where she actually made the final of the Gold Coast talent show, wasn't it? It was very interesting. Yes, you have to go and get a job. Again, it was that push. And she loves working at Coles. She's working there tonight. She likes working at Coles. We forced her into learning to drive the car finally. After about a year that she could have started learning, she's then now gone into learning how to drive the car. She also talks about herself in the third person. She used to self-medicate. She used to put herself to sleep when she was ready, irrespective. Some of the other things that she used to do, bath habits. You talk about that, Brad, what the house looked like when we came home and how many times Mckaela'd had a bath or not had a bath. She watches shows over and over and over. She does all the things. She doesn't like light, sunlight, noise. She's actually watching Grey's Anatomy, and one of the reasons she watches Grey's Anatomy is she wants to learn, because she wants to be a doctor, she actually wants to learn how to deal with patients. She used to mimic accents and copy characters on TV, particularly ones with American accents. Know that one? Didn't like playing the clarinet at school because she had to suck on the reed. She didn't like the texture. At 3, she was writing D-I-N for Diane. Don't know where she got it from. Anyway, that's her ideal 18th birthday party. The 4 of us went out together, and Mckaela was quite happy with that. She didn't want a big party. She doesn't like to drink, or she doesn't drink. Doesn't like sand, noise, parties. Her ideal friends, these are the ones that she cuts into, what's that program? Paint, that's right. So she cuts in Miley Cyrus or whoever into Paint. And she actually really likes her ASD-ness, so she doesn't see it as a deficit. She actually sees it as something that she likes. And guess who her hero is on TV? Her favourite character. And with that, and the Bazinga shirt, I'm going to ask Mckaela to come up here. All right, so we're going to do this as a question and answer, and that's basically because Mckaela's very stressed yesterday and this afternoon. Can you tell us why you're so stressed?
Well, Tomorrow I have a microbiology exam at Griffith as one of my uni courses. And normally I'm okay with assessment items and exams, and I study a lot for them and I feel prepared. But from what we've been told from third years and other people who've taken the course convener, when she writes her exams, her questions aren't worded in a way that you know what she expects from you. So she will say, for example, define something, like define a certain type of bacteria. And we will give the definition, but if you don't include all the other things she wants but doesn't tell you, like an example, where they'd live in their habitat, etc., you won't get any marks. She doesn't seem to like giving part marks, so I'm a bit worried about what she'll expect, so that's why.
That's why, plus she's got to work at Coles tonight as well. So she feels like she always needs more time to study. She's actually been studying while she's been waiting here a lot of the time. All right, so Mckaela, what would an ideal lesson look like to you?
Well, basically, I like when the teacher, I'll start by talking about what I like them to do orally, and then I'll talk about like visuals that accompany that. Generally, I like if a teacher, after you know your greetings, good morning and all that, I like to know, say in primary school, where you have the one teacher, what you're doing for the whole day. So I like a teacher to give a rundown of what you do in the morning session, what you do in the middle and the afternoon, so you can get in the headspace for each of the lessons, know what's coming, no questions just floating around in your head. And so basically after they've done that, on the board, say if you're a primary school teacher, on a chalkboard or whiteboard or the electronic whiteboards, I like if you title the lessons particularly. I find I need a title. I like when they're structured, so you present the content in a structured way, give the overarching topic, a bit about what you're going to go into. Say maths, you were doing basic algebra or something in high school, to talk about what type of algebra you're doing, and yeah, just explain as you're going through the content, explain it in a good way with examples generally. And with the visuals, I think it's important that the visuals are very structured, so the whiteboard and chalkboard should be titled, a bit of a summary on the side of what you're doing, and then proceed to write the content out and your examples in like a structured way with like maths equations, using different lines to do different parts of the equation. If it's like a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, which high school teachers use and lecturers at university, I like them to be kind of set out like I set out mine. I like the title to be underlined and centered. I just don't know why, but it helps it, you know, it just helps me see what's going on, keep it in my head, even though I'm listening and I know what the topic is, it just grounds it for me. I like visuals to be accompanied. Like I'm fine with heaps of text on the PowerPoint because the more comprehensive the better, but for revision and stuff. But yeah, visuals are very important to me. So I'll show, as in this one here, I've put up an example of a good and poor visual aid. In this one, if you go to the next slide, I'll talk about the bad one first. I've outlined why I think at university this lecturer laid out his slide poorly. Ignoring the fact it's white. But there was no title, so when you flick over the page, you can't just ground yourself and go, what topic is this? What are we doing on this slide? There was kind of no consistency to how they laid it out, so I didn't know what really was going on, not to mention the fact he didn't answer the question he put on the slide, and he didn't really answer it in the lecture either, so a bit frustrating. But yeah, so it was very annoying that way. He then proceeded to put a slide, some new definitions on a slide, and I think it's better when lecturers, if you're doing a new topic, or teachers at school, if you're doing a new topic, if you have a definition slide at the start and you talk about the words before you're going to use them, and then maybe put the definition slide at the end again, so for revision we can look at them all together, because when I study definitions, I like to group my study, so if I'm doing definitions for a course, I will study them all together. So to have definitions under another topic seemed kind of irrelevant, because the definitions were all throughout that topic and it was just awful that way. There's some little bits of writing down the bottom that were other points the lecturer was going to talk about, which didn't even have dot points, so we were all kind of wondering why they were there, and they were quite big topics too, so I think they should have been on a new slide with a title, and then he could have proceeded to talk about those topics. So just having the slides presented like that just makes my mind question, like, what's that going to be for? Why is that there? Just the disorganisation of the slide really just throws you. It distracts you from the content you're actually learning, I find. So on the next slide, if you proceed, I'll show you why I think
The
this
first one or the one before?
No, next one. Yeah, so this is my idea. The red I've added to the slide kind of makes it look awful too. But this is my idea of what a good slide would be, a good visual aid, because basically you've got a clear title, and the title is not just enzymes or something, it's like what you're learning about, so how the thing you're learning about is working. What it's got is a subtitle too, because it's a big overarching topic, so the lecturer grouped it down into a smaller, content slide. And you've got a visual aid, because it's most of the things you do, if they're visual kind of topics, if you're explaining something complex, it's always good to have a simple image. We've got the text that actually matches the visuals too. So we've been presented with two different themes, two models for something to work, and a bit of description, because the scientists haven't picked which one it is in how the body works. So we've got a description of hypothesis A and the picture that matches it. And you've got the contradicting theory, which is picture and text B, and they're side by side, so you can visually compare them and you can textually compare them as well.
So Mckaela, what you're saying is you like structure and you like visuals.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, let's move on to the next question. What do you like in a teacher?
Generally, I like...
And you were telling me about one before we came here.
Oh yeah, okay, I'll remember that. Structure's very important. So if a teacher's organised and they present content in a structured way, it's really, really effective for my learning. If not, very detrimental to my learning. An example of a university lecture I was telling Dad about, I always seem to come home and rave about her. For one of my courses, she's just so great. What she'll do, she'll teach us, it's a course, it's very content dense, lots of pathways in the body we learn. So she will teach us the content, structured way, great visuals, her slides are very good. But what she'll do when we come back the next day, before we start learning, piling on more content with more pathways, is she will stop the class for maybe 20 minutes and she will go from yesterday, what's the first process, what's the first step in this process? And she'll wait for the class to answer her, and she likes the interaction back, and as a class, we'll piece together the pathways and review it in our heads and review it out loud to her and get her to check our answers. So we're consolidating what we'd learnt the day before. So even just taking a little bit of time to go, before we step into this new content, let's just review quickly and summarise again the next day, really helps it imprint in your mind.
Excellent. So we've got review as well as structure. So that's excellent. How do you like to work? I saw a slide up there in the previous presentation that described you to a T.
Yes, I do. The quote Jacqueline presented about the open room on your own with food just at your access, everything there. I do like to work on my own in my own little space. We have a room in my house where I just sit at my desk and work. I have my food beside me. I can allow myself to get in the zone without having interruptions or having to even get up to get food. It's just all there. I'll sit there for hours upon end, same thing in Griffith Library, and just study in the zone on my own, peaceful.
Okay, so how do you handle group work?
Poorly. I do not like group work at all. I struggle a lot with just the social dynamics. Basically, because I'm trying to get into medicine, my grades have to be good, which kind of compounds on the problems for me. I have to worry about control and giving other people control of my assessment tasks and, my grades and perhaps my future with something like medicine. So I'm not very good at that. And with the current group assignment we've got for a course, I finished the assignment on the holidays before the semester started, and then picked a group of people who were happy to contribute kind of nothing. Yeah. So, not good.
So what don't you like about group work?
I struggle handing over control, and I also struggle listening to other people's ideas or trying to combine ideas together and adapt mine, basically.
All right. How do you like your classroom laid out?
There should be a slide.
There's a slide.
Kind of relevant to the last question, I do not like the classroom to be laid out in group tables. I know most people do, so it's a bit of a pain. But I really don't like having to look past like people and their reactions to the content, to look at the board and having that in the back of my mind. I like to be able to sit like in the kind of C shape or just single desk arrangement, so I'm just looking at the board, don't have too many people around me. I'd preferably like to be on an edge near a window, it's really nice, but I just don't like having people around. I'm trying to learn and listen and take it all in. It's a bit distracting.
Okay. Did you like primary, secondary or university education better?
I like uni better, mostly because we have timetables. So you always know what you're going to be doing with your weeks, days, months. You know when your exams are, exactly the dates. It's really, really good for me and the structure of it all. You also have more free time, so you have lots of breaks where you're able to study what you feel you need to study and self-prioritise what you need to do. And what's another thing? There's another big thing. Oh, lecture capture. All our lectures are kind of recorded for us, so we can go home and watch them over and over, and you don't have to be worried about stressed. And if the content's presented in a bad way, like one of the slides I showed you, it's very hard for me to take all the content in and write it down and make good notes. So I can go home with the lecture capture, watch the lecture and rearrange the slides in an order I think will help me learn, and then write my own notes in a book in like a flow, logical manner, and then study from those so I can rearrange it how I like it.
Okay, so tell me about worksheets.
Worksheets are another thing I find need to be really well structured. I like comprehensive titles, like if it's a maths worksheet, not just maths worksheet, something like Algebra Topic 1, integrals or derivatives, blah, blah, blah. Just something about what it is, so when you quickly go to look at the sheet, you know what you're going to be doing, and then just set out numbers, bullet points. Most of them are pretty good, I find. But.
And when Mckaela was at school, and this was one of my learnings probably as a principal and as a dad, I suppose, I like the teachers that get out there and they do inquiry learning and problem solving and all of those sorts of things. And while Mckaela was in a class that was doing all those wonderful things, at the other end of the room was a teacher that was teaching basically chalk and talk. Textbook, worksheets. Guess who Mckaela liked best? And the interesting thing to me was, and one of the learnings for me was, that the best teacher is not necessarily the best teacher for your child. So to me that was interesting in the fact that you have to actually differentiate for the child that you can. So that was one of my learnings. Support your kid from a young age, because you see Mckaela isn't lacking in communication or confidence now. I believe in the saying, the saying, fake it till you make it. It's a case of, I think, fake it till you make it, or better still, fake it till you become it. And I think that, that's what she's doing through her work and through her study. And the fact that she's comfortable in her own skin. She loves herself and her autism. So, thank you.